Hi, everybody. We are the last panel of the day. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're really excited to be talking to you. We're going to be talking about a great topic today, which is flavor and sweeteners, and how do you really create that great beverage so that consumers continue to buy over and over again. My name is Lori Parfit, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Sorse. Sorse is a beverage emulsion company based out of Seattle, and we're really excited to be sponsoring this panel here today. Like Steve said, I have a flight that I'm going to need to hop out for, so Howard and I are going to be tag teaming this panel, but really excited to have everybody here and this amazing panel that we have. So I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. Howard, why don't we start with you?
So I'm the CEO of Sorse. I've been probably one of the original people in the emulsion space with cannabis as our starting point. We also do emulsify hops and other products, so other materials. So that's my role.
Julian Joy, I'm the co-founder, I guess, if you will, and starter of We Beverages and Lift Mocktails. So we're in the hemp bev space. I'm also a certified nutritionist. Spent 30 years in management consulting, and now I'm learning the ropes here in the CPG space.
All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Paola Mann. I am the Senior Director of Global Brand Innovation for Celsius Holding. I oversee innovation strategy across our three brands, Celsius, Alani, and Rockstar, and happy to be here today.
Masha?
I don't have a mic, but I have a big mouth. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, you should definitely have a mic. Steve's bringing you one right now.
All right, there it is. Whoa. Hi, my name is Masha T, and I'm on the leadership team at ACS Laboratory. We're an ISO accredited DEA licensed testing lab located in Florida. I've been working with cannabis brands since 2018. We've been testing cannabis, and 2020 we started testing beverages and hemp. So because we're in Florida, we only work with Florida licensed growers to test cannabis, and hemp we get from 50 states and I think 18 countries now. So, and we test all the formulations. With the beverages we've been testing pretty much since the beginning. So I'm excited to talk about this in not a science way, because I know that I have marketing and branding people here, and I don't want you guys to glaze over as we are the last, we're the last session. But I am really excited to really speak to flavor and the complexity and how it affects, stability and all those things that people don't want to talk about, but it's the kingdom. So
Yeah, not necessarily the fun stuff.
right,
Yes.
right. We'll make it fun.
All right, so we've got a really great panel here. We have a mix of cannabis and hemp and traditional beverage, so the energy side of it as well. In fact, Celsius, like I told you earlier, it's one of those things that we stock in our house all the time. And so, one thing that always comes up is, when you try to create a beverage brand, everybody thinks that's a really easy route to market, but there's a lot of complexity involved in creating a beverage. It's not all just about what flavor you choose. It's about kind of how it all comes together, because at the end of the day, we want the consumers to come back again. So it's great if you have a wonderful package, a great brand, but if the consumer tries it and they don't like it, they're not coming back. And so you want to make sure that they're coming back over and over again. And so trial and repeat is really important. We need to really start with the consumer in mind. And so as we think about creating a beverage, whether it's cannabis, whether it's energy, we really need to think about all of the different things that go into a beverage. So a beverage can be technically strong, but if it doesn't taste good, it's not going to matter. And so consumers want things that are familiar, easy to understand. They want to feel comfortable with the beverage that they're buying. So when we think about flavor profiles that are performing best right now in beverages, what are you seeing that's gaining momentum? Paula, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Let me see, this is working, right? Yeah, okay. So the one thing that we noticed that is working really well is flavor profiles that are familiar. flavor profiles that people can relate to, flavor profiles that people don't have to guess. And when they're actually enjoying the beverage, it is a very well and balanced transition for them. It is something that they don't have to think about it too much per se, that is highly refreshing, is enjoyable, but it's also flavor profiles that bring you some, or they're tied to some memory. We all grew up with, traditional sodas or traditional candy that we go to. So when you have a flavor profile that in a way reminiscence to those notes, it brings a sense of home. It brings a sense of nostalgia. But at the same time, it is a flavor profile that you don't have to guess or second guess too much and you enjoy. It's refreshing, and then you get the functionality of the beverage that you're consuming, in our case, energy.
So what I hear you saying is it's really about finding a brand that's really going to resonate with that consumer, that's not
Yes.
going to confuse them, that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and the one thing that is very important is that there's two different types of flavor profiles. You have like the core, refreshing, simple, mainstream that we all relate to, that we're all familiar with, two flavor profiles, which are the ones that we keep in our permanent profile per se, or portfolio per se. And then we have like these special moments that we launch for like an LTO or something that is a little bit more complex and experiential, that it brings that excitement. It brings that brand, a moment that we want to bring to the portfolio. So those are kind of like the two types. What I think is important in a very successful portfolio is being able to develop both.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's having that kind of mix and having flavors that people can relate to, and they can also say, this is what I want at this time of day, this is what I want now, and really being able to find things that resonate. Masha?
Well, the other thing is the difference even in the messaging, right? With cannabis, it's all about the product. Oh, it's got this many terpenes, it's got this much, this. With beverages, it's more sophisticated too. It's like, these are the flavors, this is how it's going to make you feel, as opposed to, these are the terps and this is the THC potency. And it's just a much more sophisticated, well, I don't know if it's sophisticated, I think it's evolved, right? In the way that we even describe flavor and start to think about it. However, one caveat though is when you bring in cannabinoids, when you bring in mushroom compounds, and you bring in these other naturally occurring elements, they don't always react in the way that we think they're going to react with some of these other flavorants. And so that, is kind of, that's the fun of it, right? Coming up with the right profile and then making sure that it lasts over time, that it's shelf life stable, that it still tastes good on day 90 as it does, day one.
Right, and then it mixes well with those things. So not everything tastes good with mushrooms. Not
Right,
everything
exactly,
tastes good with
exactly,
cannabis.
correct.
You have to really think about what kind of beverage are you creating and what flavor profiles work with that beverage. I actually worked with a company once that wanted to put matcha in something. And we're like, well, we have to think about what flavors are going to taste good with matcha, because not everything does.
And some people don't like the taste of weed. I love the taste of weed. I'm happy to have it in my beverages. Some people don't. And if we want to hit the 55 and older market, that's the fastest way to lose a customer. So.
And so, Howard, when you think about flavor, when you're creating an emulsion and a formulation, what kind of things do you consider when you put together a flavor profile?
So let's go back to some interesting trends right now. Some of the more interesting trends are people are going, and it's kind of this nostalgic theme, to things that are I would say a little bit odd. When we say a little bit odd, it's not as available. Root beer, creamsicle, those are kind of trends that are happening. We help about 100 to 150 new customers every year. Those are just people who come to us who want formulation work and other things like that, maybe almost 200 a year now. And what we're looking to help them with is finding a target, like what kind of flavor. So the funny thing is everyone thinks of it as being a specific flavor that's going to be a home run. And I think what most people don't realize in the flavor world is you have to kind of have a span and then test what kind of, like you want a cola, what kind of cola? Is it very sweet? Is it a little bit bitter? And you have to kind of test a few rounds of this. It's not going to be perfect the first round. Like you're not going to go create a 48-foot trailer of one flavor and hope it works. So you want to have different flavor profiles that you can test on your friends and family and yourself, and then hopefully to focus groups.
Right, so it's not just a one and done. you have to iterate on it. And so it's not as simple as it seems, where you just create a flavor and you just go to market. You produce it, you go to market with it. You sometimes have to iterate. So Julian, from your perspective, so you sit in the cannabis space as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approach flavor and how you think about it?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, flavor is first, right? We can talk about the entourage effect and all the attributing components to our design, and I designed everything very specifically for our products. So we have very unique terpenes that we apply to it. We have 3 adaptogenic mushrooms that we apply to it. So it was very specific in what the outcome we wanted. So we have a series of hop teas and a series of seltzers. The seltzers were more daytime, so we were higher in limonene, linalool, so that more coherent, connective kind of feel. And our hop teas are more higher in myrcene, so they're more relaxed, calming. But to go back to how do we flavor? As you know, since we have the adaptogenic mushrooms, and also we finally found an emulsion supplier that had 0 flavor impact at 50 milligrams, so we were pretty impressed with that. You know, we didn't want to have the weed component just because we're looking at market adoption from those that aren't really in the weed space now. So we didn't want to be off-putting, right, to the people who were new to this particular category. That being said, we use only natural terpenes to flavor our products. So not only do we get the super powerful aromatics on it, but also a very strong flavor profile that will last. So it'll hit you first through the nose, right? So you get the aromatics, and then you get the flavor profile, and then it lingers because there's a little heavier component to flavoring products with terpenes. But to go into like what's trending, I mean, she definitely has more data than I do, but I agree with you, familiarity, right, drives trial. And even if you're going to go to that, you know, your 70% of your portfolio is core flavors, the known flavors, and then you're gonna get unique for new market customers, those unique opportunities for those people who want something a little bit different. Let's say something familiar but with some complexity. Pineapple basil, for instance. You know, some of these new flavors. It's probably not going to be your #1 SKU, and it's probably not going to potentially cannibalize any of your other SKUs, but it's going to be a unique opportunity for somebody to try that. So seeing some of those unique flavors, what are we seeing? Like elderflower being used, some other different unique botanical components to flavors. I think it adds a very unique component to a brand to offer this every once in a while, or seasonally, if you will.
Right, so you mentioned the entourage effect. So that's a very cannabis kind of related topic, which is about how it all comes together to create the effect that you want. And then what I hear you really saying here is you need to balance the flavors that people know with some unique differentiated flavors that are going to kind of pull consumers in. And maybe those aren't going to be your top sellers, but they kind of draw people into your brand and create some unique interest that other brands don't have.
Correct.
Awesome. So let's go to our next topic, which is really about sweetness. And sweeteners and sweetness, we hear all kinds of things about sweeteners. And if you have followed, you know, soda and seltzers, and even in the beverage alcohol space, there's a lot of commentary out there about what kind of sweeteners you use, when, what people like, what people don't like. It's bigger than just a formulation decision. It actually affects your brand positioning and consumer perception. And consumers are really paying attention to how products are sweetened these days. So sugar, like traditional sugar, is kind of a dirty word. No sugar added has become a really hot topic. And there's a lot of different options that you have because you do have to sweeten the product or people aren't going to like it. So, Masha, how are brands approaching sweetener strategy right now, and what choices are you seeing most often in the marketplace?
So it's interesting because even in, like, for example, gummies, right? I'm always just shocked at how the first ingredient is corn syrup and in a medical state. And these are medical gummies, right? So they're very worried about the label. It can't be more than 10 milligrams. Ooh, someone's going to have, you know, a psychosis. But you're going to put corn syrup in there and allow, you know, patients especially 55 and older, people, will have diabetes, high blood pressure, and they're having these gummies and they're not healthy. So there's that. One of the things that we've seen, which is interesting, and I got to work with, because the cannabis brands are more closed when it comes to working with the lab, but some of the new mushroom brands that were making gummies, and we saw that over time, we couldn't understand it. The potency was starting to go down of multiple active ingredients. And at first we thought there was a problem with the testing, but then we realized it's because over time, if there is a higher amount of sugar content, it absolutely degrades potency. And there's just no doubt now. And so in response to that, now brands are doing like a mixed natural sugar, maybe half monk fruit, half something else. They're starting to, so like hybrid products now, not just cane sugar. They're pulling out corn syrup, for high fructose corn syrup, all that stuff. I'm seeing a lot of that come out. But it's going to impact flavor too. If you remove the sugar, then there's no viscosity, and then there's like a texture, not just with gummies, drinks too. So it has a certain magic to it, but yet, it's just like the worst thing for you. It's legal, right? Ironically, sugar is legal. It's the worst drug in terms of how it'll affect your body.
Right. So yes, it's legal, but just because it's legal doesn't mean we should do it.
Correct.
And it's important to kind of balance these things, especially in health and wellness categories. And everybody we have on stage is kind of working in that health and wellness category. So whether it's cannabis, whether it's mushrooms, whether it's, a Celsius energy drink, that's really all about health and wellness and being able to perform at your highest level. And we have consumers that go across the board. So you talked about 55 plus, but that goes all the way down, and making sure that you can appeal to all of those customers and that they'll continue to buy your drinks is very important.
And the other thing is, sugar is the first thing that will block bitterness, and if you don't have that cannabinoid profile kind of dialed in the beginning, it's going to be bitter first, and then you're forced to use a bitter blocker, and that's its own animal. And by the way, all those inputs need to be tested for residual solvents. I can't tell you how many, unfortunately, products we see fail, not because they didn't think, it was the bitter blocker that had some ethanol in it that would cause them to, not pass their labs. And it was so late in the process. It's so unnecessary. When in the beginning you should test all the inputs and just do the due diligence.
I couldn't agree with you more, because it's very expensive to go back
Yes.
and reformulate.
Yes.
Howard, have you seen anything like that with customers?
So it's funny, we have some customers who say they want 0 calories, but then they realize it tastes like crap. And then they come back and say, well, so I think when you come back to sweeteners, and then we should talk about bitter blockers too, but sweeteners in general is again, what's your range of profiles? We have a company in Seattle where I'm based, is called Jones Soda, and I don't know how many people know it, but it is the sweetest soda you could ever imagine. They have this core following that they sell to, and it's sold in stores. But it's interesting that no matter what they do, they're in that category of incredibly sweet, again, regular flavors. But back to the sweeteners and the idea behind what works or doesn't work. Again, it really is about creating those unique ideas that you have that will make whether it's sweet or not. I would actually say that it's kind of going the opposite way. People are taking sweeteners completely out, and so they're making very unusual flavors that may or may not sell, but they're deciding not to have a lot of sweeteners in their products. But again, it's I wouldn't say all over the map, but it's kind of down to monk fruit and stevia are the two that are most common that people are using. Now, again, if you are worried about cost, you don't want to use monk fruit. So
Yeah, because monk fruit is not cheap.
it is not cheap.
It is definitely not. Julian, what are you seeing?
As far as what I'm seeing, I think the market as a whole, I don't think the general population is anti-sugar. I think they're anti-excess sugar. So I think psychologically, most people at 5 grams or less are willing to accept that. I completely agree with you on the corn syrup part and so many other things, but Yeah, I mean, as a nutritionist too, I mean, there are options, right? And I'm not, like, I remember jumping on the bandwagon years ago when sucralose Splenda came out because there's no glycemic response. Well, that's not entirely true. I'm not going to dig into that, but anyhow, there's so many problems with so many of these artificial sugars. And even some of the greatest ones, like monk fruit, has an issue, right? It's $320 a kilo. That's very expensive from a production standpoint. So typically we have to work with blends to be able to balance that, to be able to use monk fruit. Typically monk fruit is mixed with erythritol, which has GI problems. I mean, so there's all these different things. Aspartame, like honestly, like if I'm not feeling good, I still go back. Like I love, now my brain's not working, the grapefruit soda. It's been around for 50 years. Fresca, thank you. Like that's my go-to. Like it's my jam. But it's got aspartame in it, dang it. And it's like, okay, it's great. Brain cancer. Every time I sip it, brain cancer.
That's terrible. You have to bless it before you drink it, and then it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's just like, just don't do it very often.
It's good for
I
me.
don't, right? Or when I'm in contest prep and I want something sweet, it's a diet root beer, aspartame, right? So it's not good. But the options, like I personally, from a physiological and biological stand, I love allulose. But from a flavor perspective, it's problematic, right? Because it'll draw essentially the liquid out of your mouth. It'll dry your mouth. But allulose actually lowers blood sugar. So from a beneficial perspective, it's definitely something you would lean on, but it's very difficult to work with. So it's just all over the board. But I think some type of sugar blend is probably the way to go.
So you really have to balance it.
Balance
you
is
have to
key.
balance what's
You
good
have
for
to
you
design it,
versus
yeah.
also what's going to taste good and work with your beverage.
Right. I think if you're focused strictly just on the wellness and beverage, like, hey, zero sugar, and leave everything else out, and taste goes to the wastebasket, you're done. I mean, it's just not going to happen. You'll have no repeat business.
Agreed. So Paula, when you think about how you guys formulate Celsius, what have you looked at in terms of sweeteners?
So one of the things that is very important for the Celsius consumer is the zero sugar. So we go with sucralose. So what we have to do in order for us to have a very balanced liquid profile is that taking into consideration the sweetener is a very powerful sweetener, but we also have a very, very strong functional formula within our cans, and that requires a lot of masking per se, right? In order for us to deliver something that is enjoyable. So for us, sucralose has been incredibly successful in that end because it allows us to deliver the very well-balanced sensory experience when people are getting, the cans. The also thing is that you don't want to miss on the functionality. And again, we talk about research and access to research, we've done a lot of that.
I'm sure you
And we have very strong opinions and very strong demand for the zero sugar. So we have to be respectful of what we have built in the market with that statement.
I would agree. So what I really hear here is that you really have to balance a few different things. You have to balance the flavor profile with what's potentially good and or bad for you, and what, from a cost perspective, you can truly afford to put in your product so that you can sell it at retail. Masha?
And so one of the things I've seen in the evolution of gummies, just to bring it back, because I've seen more variations, is now pectin, right? Which is good, and they don't hold up as much. It's not it's not binding, and then your shelf life goes down. So, and then people are like, oh my God, how did this happen? I just, there's like a million gummies here. Like, how did we go wrong with this? So I think you have to look at short-term, long-term, like date sugar is a big thing right now. I don't know if you guys.
That would be allulose.
That's what that is? Allulose is date
It's
sugar.
mostly notified in figs.
It's what?
I said it's mostly found in figs
Okay.
and dates.
Okay. Yeah, and that's really good.
All right, so sweeteners are not as easy as they sound. You really have to think about how it all works together. And I think, Masha, to your point, before you create 1,000 gummies, before you create a bunch of beverages, you really have to keep testing. You have to keep looking at stability. You have to make sure that it holds up. So do test runs first before you go to full production.
Yes, and bring the lab in as your partner, and very early on, instead of just think about it as a compliance test and something you have to do later. Because early on, yes, it may look like you have to spend more money than you thought on testing, but I hear people say this all the time, oh, it's so expensive, like I didn't Well, if you don't have money for testing, like, why are you in business? You know, it's so important to know your inputs from the beginning. People have botanical terpenes, which are natural terpenes, but they come through with a ton of residual solvents because they were extracted, or pesticides. And no one thinks to look for that early on because they don't want to spend the money on a terpene test. So you just have to really think smarter earlier in that R&D process by making the lab your partner. And I'm not just saying that because I'm with ACS. It's just
No, and
talk to
I
hundreds
actually
of, yeah.
agree with you. And we see this on the branding side too. People want to go right to logo and packaging design, and they forget to do the foundational brand strategy work, and then they end up having to redo it. If you actually bring your lab in from the beginning, and you have them work with your emulsions and your formulators, you will end up with a better product, and you will have to iterate less.
Because we've seen so many different mistakes and so many different successes, it's quick for us to be like, oh, this is why. Like in the beginning of the industry, people were just losing potency and we couldn't figure out why. It's because the cans were leaching. You know, you didn't have the in-can technology,
yeah.
the liner.
It's called scalping.
I mean, and things, and so many other things. I remember, I think it was like the New York Times, where there was this one, it was a major media outlet, and they did a whole expose on how CBD water doesn't really have CBD in it. And they had named Living Water at the time, CBD Living Water. And we didn't know them. I just kind of looked them up. I liked their brand story. The guy was like, oh, you know, it looks like someone I could be friends with. So I just called him up and I was like, listen, I'd love to test your product for free. Let's prove them wrong. So, and if you don't have the right testing lab that tests to a billionth, then it may look like there's no CBD in it. But if you know how to set up the testing in the beginning and you have the right representation, I mean, it can make or break. He almost lost his business.
Right, so bring your
So-
testing lab in early, work with them. This is actually, instead of thinking about it as an expense, it's going to save you money down the road. It'll save you issues, it'll save you having to continue to iterate. Bring them in as your partner with your beverage emulsion, with your formulator, and make sure it all works together.
So by the way, it's called Scalping, which we just mentioned.
is it? Yeah,
It's called
Scalping.
Scalping, but
Yeah.
it's the way to solve it is called Gen 2 can liners. So
Right, yeah.
if you're a small run, this is again when you're just getting out the door, you may not be able to get cans that have Gen 2 can liners, but you need to ask your broker or your co-packer to get those Gen 2 can liners, because in your first run you may find 5 to 10% of your product is leaching or scalping into the liner.
I've seen 50. Not personally, but through other brands.
So to tell you a quick story, we had a major CBD, we had a major run of a product, and this is the week of Christmas, and on the 23rd day of Christmas, we had to call the Vice President of Science for Ball Can of why this was happening. So we were one of the first people to find the scalping issue. And they called us back, and they worked with, we have a scientist, our EVP of Science is back there, Michael Fleming. So if you want to know how to do a gummy, he's done about 2,000 recipes. But on the scalping issue, we actually got our science team and Ball's science team, and we actually did a paper on it. And but by the first of the year, we figured out it was this bad can.
I've read your paper.
All right.
And we went with the Valspar V70.
Yeah, but you can go with them too. So.
Well, so it's a great point. So we need to make sure that we're putting all of the right things in, we're testing regularly, and we're making sure that the product we're putting out there for consumers is exactly what they expect. Consumer protection is really important, so making sure you're using your testing lab is going to be incredibly important. All right, so we're on to our last topic, and we only have a few more minutes for it. So this is really about the full sensory experience. And so Julian, you mentioned entourage effect earlier. You also have to think about mouthfeel, aroma, aftertaste. There's all of these components to creating a great beverage. And so we want to make sure that as we're doing that, we're bringing it together so it's really an impactful sensory experience for the consumer. So when you think about a great beverage experience, what matters most beyond flavor? Julian, can you start?
I mean, beyond obviously being in the functional beverage space, it would be experience. That would be the initial response. Outside of that, I would have to say mouthfeel is probably second, because aroma is typically not something that a whole lot of people pay attention to. I mean, it's there, but cognitively, it would have to be pretty strong to be aware of it, right? So I would have to say from a functional beverage perspective, the right answer is experience, right? And outside of that particular realm, it would have to be mouthfeel.
Okay, that's a great point. Masha, thoughts from you?
Potency. I'm
Potency.
gonna just go with potency because from what we've seen, so it's a little bit different, right? Because in the THC market, we want to stay below zero point 0.3. We don't want to talk about potency. In the cannabis market, they're obsessed with potency, as if THC were the most important cannabinoid, when it's really the least important. There's about 300 others nobody's talking about.
Oh, for sure.
So,
Yeah.
but so in hemp, we know that we can get the potency by using a certain weight to get around that loophole. And I'm not going to go there right now. So potency, and so THC combined with other cannabinoids and terpenes, you get a full spectrum effect. And then you add some mushroom compounds to that. You can get the experience of having a buzz, having a lift, having. So I'm gonna say, so potency was the wrong word. I'm gonna say, a different state of consciousness,
Experience.
more than experience. But yeah,
So what?
And-
So even you said, mouthfeel and all of that. You're saying really the sort of like the effect.
the effect. Thank you.
Functionality, yeah.
I think all those THC drinks are starting to hit me from the expo. Yes, the effect, Lori. Thank you.
You know, another thing that is very important is the aftertaste, especially for us in the beverage world. When you think about you're consuming a 12-ounce can, and when you have those first sips and they're enjoyable, but the aftertaste is not as enjoyable, you're not going to finish that can, and you're certainly not going to get a second one. So that's important too. And a very well-balanced carbonation too. Something that is overly carbonated doesn't make you feel good, doesn't make you want to do anything necessarily. And for females, you might feel a little bit more than that. So a very well-balanced carbonation, good aftertaste, and in addition to everything that you have mentioned, from the functionality to the mouthfeel, it has to be a full experience. I always say that the label matters on shelf, the sensory experience matters at home or on the go, whatever it is that you're consuming that liquid.
Well,
The minute it
sensory is
leaves the
what's
shelf.
going to make sure that
Yeah.
people continue to come back and buy
Yes.
your product. So I think aftertaste is really important, because I can't tell you how many times someone's like, ooh, the aftertaste on that is terrible. And so you want to make sure that it's not just the first sip, it's what happens after that.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the sweetener you choose that creates the aftertaste.
Yes, absolutely. Howard, any thoughts from you?
No, just one thought is on the aftertaste, it's actually caused by some type of oil that's, part of your recipe, part of your formulation. And emulsions, that's not a segue about emulsions, but emulsions can make it more homogeneous, so you don't have a big aftertaste formula sometimes. So that's also part of this idea of how do you combine oils and water together to make a product, and that's up to your formulator. And it's very interesting in the mouthfeel side. We actually created something that can make actually Michael was the inventor of it, is a product that can make your very Anheuser-Busch beer, a Bud, taste like a Guinness, because we can put this mouthfeel product in it. It's a natural product. But again, the reason why Michael was so successful with this mouthfeel product is that it takes this liquid and makes it sit on your tongue just 1/100th of a second longer, and it makes it feel so luxurious. So it makes it feel like a Guinness. So we can take Budweiser beer and make it feel like a Guinness, which is kind of strange. But anyway, those are things that, mouthfeel is important, and those are things that we're very cognizant of in the space of how to do a formulation. So.
Wonderful. All right, so this gets us to the end of our prepared topics for this panel. So overall, you want to create a product that consumers are going to come back for again and again. And so flavor is really important, making sure you have that balance of flavors people know with differentiated flavors, making sure that as you think about creating your beverage, that the sweetener you utilize works with those flavors, as well as any other components like cannabinoids or mushrooms or any other type of product there. And make sure you're partnering with your testing lab. Make sure that you're really working with them because they're going to save you money later on. Don't look at them as an expense. Look at them as a cost saver because they will make sure that your beverage is going to be viable for the marketplace. And then when it comes to the overall sensory experience, every component of it needs to work together, from mouthfeel to aftertaste to all of it. You need to create that full sensory experience that's going to make consumers feel good about coming back and buying your product. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to turn it over to Howard to take questions from the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Safe travels. Don't fall. Questions? It's the last session. Everyone wants to get out of here.
No questions? We got one.
I'm sorry? Yep, allulose. Yep. What would you like to
Hi.
know about it?
Well, why people talk more about monk fruit or stevia and not much about the other sweetener?
Yeah, like allulose. So
Yeah.
one of the reasons why Julian mentioned it, and Michael, why don't you come up here? We're gonna put Michael on the spot. Michael's the expert on this, and so just one of the things we talked about is allulose and stevia, and almost all of these compounds have thousands of variations. So you have to also match what kind of things are happening. So you've got a big voice, but
Yeah, I'll prove it.
What?
So allulose is about 60 to 66% as sweet as sugar. So the amount of it you typically use to get the same sweetness level is, there's a cost there, right? Like how much do you need to use? To your point, the earlier point, it's my favorite sweetener. It's the one if I develop, I like to develop with it. Just in my opinion, because what we primarily are concerned with are the sensory notes surrounding cannabinoids, which are different than mushrooms, which are just different than caffeine or taurine or any of the other functional ingredients out there. So it's thinking about what the notes are associated with the cannabis plant and then how your sweetener is going to interact with those notes, which is why you oftentimes see botanicals as great flavoring agents like rosemary's or basil notes, mint notes, have some of those herbaceous notes that are coming through in the cannabis, and even knocking them down the best you can, there still might be, depending on whether or not you're a super taster or not, you may pick them up. So it's about finding like an alignment with your other ingredients. You're not built. You can't look at these things as, I'm going to put this much in and this much in. Well, this is going to have an interaction. This is going to have a flavor. Like you may be putting enough components in that are devoid of bitter, but in aggregation they become bitter. So it's really thinking about things much more holistically and functionally than we have in the past. Traditional soda guys or soda manufacturers, as long as it tasted good, you got sugar and flavor, right? Like you're acidulant in there. I mean, a Coke is amazing because of phosphoric, and then in the beverage industry, almost no one uses it. It's like you want to add crispness and pop to the flavors you get. That's the phosphoric. So your acidulant package makes a big deal. Now the bad part, we're talking about potency, right? So what drives potency degradation in a cannabis beverage? And a lot of times it's the same set of conditions that degrade the potency from most functional ingredients. Unfortunately, it's literally everything else you put in the can. So you have 20 levers, right? The customers always want to know, how do I get maximum potency retention? Tell me what else you put in there. So then, well, we're going to dial this back. Is it the pH? Is it your carbonation level? Is it, is it your flavor, the amount of flavor? Is it the carrier system of the flavor? Are you a PG carrier or ethanol carrier? Like, all of these, are you retorting? Are you tunneling? What pasteurization? Are you hot filling? Like, all of those conditions. And then you get really interesting ones because minerals are great chain transfer agents in degradation, and people don't think about minerals and the way they can interact and degrade potency.
so hold on. that's a long
I will
answer.
go and go and go.
That's a long answer to why don't we look at other sweeteners? And so I just mentioned two of the most popular ones that our customers want. Allulose is another one, but it hasn't been that popular right now.
It will be. I think it's climbing. I think that people are studying, people are learning. And again, I got turned on to allulose it's maybe 18 months ago that really kind of triggered up like, hey, let's dig into this. And so, and again, like I'm a wellness coach, right? So physiologically, biologically, I'm all for it right now, but who knows, 18 months from now, we might find something out that we don't like.
So is it true it lowers your glycemic index, actually?
Okay, so it lowers your blood sugar.
Your blood sugar.
So does cinnamon. So typically when I'm putting somebody on a diet, cinnamon will actually lower blood sugar. Allulose does the same thing. So if they're using Splenda or they're using other components in their coffee, that kind of stuff, I just tell them to replace it with allulose. And I tell them to add cinnamon. So we do both.
And what's the source of the allulose? Like, where is it coming from?
Figs, typically.
I understand that. No, I get that. Who do you get it from? Like, who extracts it? Who gives it, like,
The
delivery?
major ingredient suppliers use.
Yeah.
Almost any, just food flavor companies. There are many of them who do that now.
Okay, interesting. I'd love to just taste
Much
the
more
raw
common.
material.
Much more common now.
Just want to test the allulose, just for heavy metals, residual solvents, all that stuff.
So
'Cause
just
someone's making it.
Just FYI, again, I'm a little, I don't want to challenge what you're finding, but in all of the major ingredient players that we provide, that we get ingredients from and flavors from, they all have COAs that have already tested for everything,
Absolutely.
and so you're still finding it.
Yes, because the rules change so often in the states, and there's not one national standard. Some states require 13 pesticides, others 102.
Oh.
And then residual solvents, like Florida just added one, like out of nowhere, so it varies so much. So what the manufacturers are testing for is a very standard set, and they're doing the best they can. It's not their fault. This is intentional that this stuff is changing.
Questions out there? Let's keep going with questions. Any more? No more?
I'm seeing different like active ingredients for caffeine, and I know we talked about like flavors and different sugars that are used, but what are the active ingredients you guys are using across Celsius, Alani, and Rockstar? Is it all caffeine, and does caffeine affect flavor and other ways
It is
to wake you
caffeine.
up?
It is caffeine. It's not caffeine flavor. It is actually caffeine.
So that are there other? Because I feel like I saw one or two people that are using not caffeine to find that energy. Is that something that affects the flavor?
Caffeine is a very bitter ingredient on its own, so definitely affects the flavor. It's one of our biggest challenges. But we do use caffeine. Other brands out there are experimenting with other non-caffeine energy compounds, I guess we can call them, but
Anything?
none us.
Excuse me. Anything you add is going to affect flavor. There's almost nothing that's inert, right? It's a chemical formula, right? You need world-class chemists to figure it out sometimes. So
I have a question for you guys. So how would you say a hemp beverage or a THC beverage mixes with alcohol? Let's say someone wants to make a cocktail.
Fantastic.
What-
Every day.
What-
Beer, spirits, wine, it all works. Just find the combination.
Right. So, the tequila, vodka, anyone?
It's horribly illegal in the U.S., but it's magical.
It's not FDA approved. That's
No,
what
you're
he
not
said.
going to make it. No, you're not going to sell it. But someone at home could make a cocktail with a THC soda and
Yeah,
vodka.
so we got one purist and one non-purist on the panel.
It's my
I'm-
mocktail.
I'm more of a purist.
So, it's an interesting question that, we know Michael experiments a lot. And so you just have to experiment with it, right? It's something that we don't tell people, this is the first time I'll probably publicly say it, is I exercise, before I exercise, like before I get on, and it's almost always in a stationary, it's in a closed environment, it's in a rower or on a stationary bike. I actually love 2.5 to 3 milligrams of THC.
It's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just. It's you talk about runner's high. It's a perfect additive to getting getting you going. And since
What's your
everything's-
delivery system? What's your favorite delivery system for THC?
Obviously, we have tinctures, right? Drops, and we do, and so it's just a great product that isn't really out there, but we want someone to create it. We obviously aren't in the brand game, we aren't in that side, but someone ought to come up with an athletic version of THC that comes
Absolutely.
out, right?
Yes. And THCV also, because together, wow.
Well,
Did you say THCV?
THCV, yes.
So, again, a cautionary tale for all of you out there. I would say you have to be very careful with these minor cannabinoids in high concentrations. We don't know if that's food safety yet. We don't, I can say in my own experience, again, I think THC is a very safe product, but these minor cannabinoids haven't been tested at the concentrations where people are ingesting right now. And so I'm very concerned about that. But also what we can tell you from our experience, THCV as an isolate is very difficult to work
I
with.
wouldn't isolate anything, just
Well, it comes
full spectrum.
anyway. So as a product to sell in the commercialized way, THCV is very difficult to work with. So
In terms of the formulation
yeah.
itself.
You can't get the
The
right
degradation
And
profile
stability,
is
yeah, stability.
exponential.
That's why I haven't seen it.
It's a stability issue. And a lot of people are actually, there's a guy here in Florida that's actually got it in his products. And I asked him, I said, are you selling this as a weight loss product? He goes, no. Anyway, I won't bore you with the other response, but
sure. Okay, cool.
nice. But yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a great pre-workout.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just right before when you start warming up, it's like pretty amazing. All right. Any more
Runner's
questions?
high, right? It gives you a
And then
whole
you
Okay,
gotta
but
meaning
you
Runner's
to
said
High.
runner's high.
I'm going to have to say this. Did anybody read that report a couple months ago that came out on Runner's High?
Oh yeah.
That was amazing. So at 70% exertion for 22 minutes, you produce enough cannabinoids in the brain to get high. And they finally proved that. So that is a runner's high is literally getting high off of your own body, producing its own cannabinoids at 70% exertion for 22 minutes. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.